You have done what many considered impossible, sir. You have met the gentleman responsible for the amazing story and writing of the Earthbound series, a gentleman by the name of Shigesato Itoi. Tell us how this went. How did this even happen? What's going on?
Well, so a couple of years ago, we launched a Kickstarter because we basically sat down and said, all right, we want to just do something for ourselves. Like, we don't want a client project. We want to sit down and just do something that we want to do. And that basically took the form of we wanted to make a handbook for Earthbound like we did for Mother 3. Mm-hmm. Kind of like the player's guide that came with it, but just with everything that we've learned since then. Like, there's so much about the game we've learned. There's so much we've learned about design and how to tell, how to present things.
And we really wanted to comment on the era that Earthbound was in, and also the era that we experienced it in, additionally.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a '90s themed
love letter.
You have to see it. It's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's that. There's like a zine of fan artwork that we want to put together, and then there's also a documentary. Yeah. The documentary is just about Earthbound and its relation to the West, like coming from Japan to America, and all the things that have happened surrounding that. And it's called Earthbound USA, and my friend Jeff is putting the documentary together. And so as part of that, we reached out to Hobonichi, which is Itoi's office in Japan. And we asked if he would be willing to sit down for an interview. He said, sure. So we flew out, and it was wild. I don't know. Itoi is a really fascinating guy. Like, he's really busy. He's a successful businessman. He runs a company, and I don't want to compare him to Fangamer, but kind of like Fangamer, they do a bunch of different things, except they're even more diverse than we are. Like, they don't really focus on games except when they do Mother stuff. Because Itoi still has IP rights for the Mother series.
And usually when they focus on Mother, it's a crossover with some of the items and products they already make.
Yeah,
I have one of those planners, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
with the Earthbound cover.
And that's their big thing, is like this planner is called a Techo.
Yeah.
And it's basically just a daily, planner. But it's just really, really well thought out, well designed, well manufactured. It's a really high quality product. But they do like jelly. They do nori, like seaweed sheets. They do
towels.
They do little bags and purses. I mean, they just do a little of everything. They're just a really unusual company.
It's kind of like a lifestyle, just a bunch of lifestyle items that just really augment your everyday.
They've got a daily blog.
What a perfect thing for the guy who made Earthbound to have a company that sells jelly and tote bags and stuff like that. That's so funny. That's like perfectly weird.
Yeah.
It's the whole company is just as unusual as he is. It makes sense. But anyway, so we went to meet with him, and it was incredible.
Yeah, well, he's mentioned you guys before. He called you Starman Club.
Yes,
I've heard this story. That's how he would refer to this very passionate group of Earthbound fans, if I remember correctly.
I believe that was during the Mother 1+2 release event.
It was later than that. It was like a concert or something.
Yeah, where people were listing a bunch of names, and he saw a bunch of names from America, and somebody's like, oh, that's Earthbound. Oh, it's the Starman Club.
Yeah, like he was peripherally aware of us. Like, when we sat down to talk, I was actually sick, and so when the documentary comes out, you'll hear me like croaking. I was trying my best to keep it together, but we sat down. I was really nervous. I was like, "Hi, I'm Reid, blah blah blah." I started a website, and he goes, "Oh yeah, we know all about the website," and it just knocked me out of my chair. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I guess he and like a lot of people at Nintendo knew about our fan site for a long time. Which I guess makes sense because we were so noisy about everything. But, we never really got much in the way of direct acknowledgement from them. And I asked him about that. I said, so why, it came up at some point. It's like, why didn't you acknowledge, like, why didn't you reach out to the fan base and say, hey, hey, I made the game. You guys are cool. I mean, not we're saying like you should have. I just wondered what his reasoning was. And he just felt like, I can't remember what his answer was, but it was like, well, I think you needed to do things on your own. You needed to exist on your own. You didn't need my interference. Like, he didn't feel like he was going to be able to add anything to our experience by reaching out. And he didn't want to ruin something,
It's kind of like
a really interesting and thoughtful take from someone who normally people would be like, yeah, I deserve this fame. Let's
give it to me now. Yeah, no, instead.
It's kind of like how when he talked about Mother 3, this is a world for you to explore. This is a world for you to imbue. He kind of wants to be able to put out his creation, allow people to grow within it, and also take from it what they want and making, add to whatever they take away from it to something that they make their own, or something new. And I think that's kind of this. He's noted that on Mother 3, and I think it's the same way of kind of reacting to us, and a non-response is allowing us just to make it our own.
I mean, it's really interesting too because it sounds. In 2016, it sounds like such a trivial thing. It's like, well, of course he would know about it because it would be people would tweet at him, and like it would be the top post on the Earthbound subreddit or whatever. But it's like in like 2002, that wasn't a thing. Like it's like it was a lot harder to get that feedback and even to get through to people. And like the idea of communicating with him in any way was kind of something that didn't seem like it was even possible.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember the one campaign that we did that ultimately led to Fangamer happening was. We put together this book that was full of artwork, like fan arts. It was kind of like it was almost like a pitch for Mother 3 in a way.
Yeah, we were showing the current market, the trends, numbers, and the fan base.
Just explain like why the game is important and why it's worth pursuing and re-releasing.
This is right when the Wii, I believe, was released, when the Virtual Console was announced.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, I think we've been dancing around it, but just to make it clear for folks, there was a long period of time where Nintendo would never acknowledge Earthbound in the West, so it was re-released on Game Boy Advance as Mother 1 and 2, so that was the Super Nintendo version and the NES or Famicom, if you want to get technical versions. Then Mother 3, which was the sequel, went from being a Nintendo 64 game to being resurrected as a Game Boy Advance game.
Yeah, it was announced at the tail end of the trailer for Mother 1+2 that it's in development, and then it came out in 2000. That was June 2005 when they announced it. It came out on May 20th, 2006.
Yeah, and because Mother 1+2 was 2003. Yeah, and then I think or 2002 maybe, and then it was a few years later.
And this was the tail end of the Game Boy Advance, which meant. Localization was it was whenever that happens on a cool Nintendo project, there's always the question of, is this going to make it over or not? And there have been plenty of cases where that game didn't make it over. Rhythm Heaven was another example of a quirky, interesting idea they tried for GBA. I think it was roughly the same time. I'd have to look it up. I'm sure someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong. But that was another quirky game that didn't come out here. The first Rhythm Heaven game on GBA, which is one of the best ones in that series, never came out here.
Huh.
Yeah.
But it did eventually, right?
Its first chance of us knowing what it is actually part of the Mega Mix that they're putting out. Because Mega Mix is the GBA game, the DS game, the Wii game, and some new mini games as well that were made for the 3DS version.
Nice.
That was what they just announced on the
on Nintendo Direct. Yeah.
Yeah,
but Mother 3 still has not been released here.
And it's fascinating that if Mother 3 comes here, it will be on Wii U like it is in Japan, which is really interesting. Like Earthbound to me, it's so funny. Like having sat in front of a TV and played it obviously as a kid, like. Mother 1+2, I was so jealous of because as a portable game, and I mean it's like you, right? Like I haven't sat down and played the game start to finish in a very, very, very long time. But I finally will on 3DS because I'll play it on planes and I'll pick it up and like that's a perfect place for it. And it's like I feel so weird and like greedy with it now, and I'm like, man, I hope we get Mother 3 on Wii U, and then I kind of hope we get it on 3DS because it's like it would be so cool and portable. It's also like I'll obviously take on anything.
But. Sorry, we were talking about. So we had this book that was kind of like pitching the game to Nintendo. We're saying, hey, you guys should really do this, and we tried to send it to him, and we sent a copy to his office.
We actually translated a specific copy in Japanese.
We paid like $5,000 or something to get it translated.
I hope that translation was worth it. Good, like high quality.
Okay, it was definitely high quality.
Oh, excellent. Okay,
I don't remember how much we paid for it, but we definitely paid somebody like some pretty serious money. We did a fundraiser. We said, listen, guys, we can't tell you what we're doing. We need a bunch of money. And the community just like showed up and they just threw money at it. And because of that, we were able to do this crazy book. And we translated it so Itoi could read it and share it with people at Nintendo in Japan.
But did he get that book?
He did.
Okay.
Yeah, and we
also, Camille made a little figurine for him as well.
The figurines that one of the ones Andy has on his desk here, we sent a bunch of them to Itoi's office as well. A bunch of little Starman figurines.
Yeah, I love those little Starman. Also, I think that Shark Punk might be the first thing I bought from Fangamer.
Yeah,
I think that was like...
Yeah, it was one of the first things we sold.
Yep.
But so this book was all predicated on that, and we sent a copy to him. And at the time, his company, Hobonichi has been around for a while, and one thing they do is have a daily blog that as soon as the next day rolls over, it just disappears. They don't have an archive. It just, if you want to read it, you better go there every day. But they also have a fish tank webcam where they have a webcam that just points at the fish tank, and you can see the office past the fish tank, but they're focused on the fish, which is a classic Itoi thing to do. And so we would log into the website and analyze pixels on the fish tank
To see if
webcam.
they got the
Is
box.
the package there? Is
Yeah,
that it?
yeah.
Okay, there's a couple
so
white
funny.
pixels. That might be the box that was
Screen cap. Screen cap.
Yeah, oh yeah, we had a ton of screen caps. It was a classic, just total nerd, like just really geeking out about stuff, and that's our core. That's the core of Fangamer in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just being unable to control what a dork you are.
Yeah, I think at that petition we kind of realized we had enough skill. It's like, you know what? If this is not going to happen on the timetable that we're feeling that we want for Earthbound, we can do it. We can make a company that can try to promote and support the fans in our own way.
Okay.
And so that's how Fangamer kind of
Yeah,
came about.
Fangamer actually started as our goal was to make fan sites like Starman.net for other games. But it wasn't long before we realized that Starman.net and Earthbound are just this really weird exception. Like one of the first ones we wanted to do was Chrono Trigger. I mean, Chrono Compendium really had a lock on it. They didn't need help,
Yeah.
But aside from Earthbound and Chrono Trigger, there's not a lot of games that can support a fan base like that. At least not in the modern day. Like now everybody's got Twitter and Reddit and
Yeah.
every other social
Yeah, like
media.
fan sites are basically not even a thing
they're
now
not really
because
existing
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And that's fine because like now Earthbound community used to be Starman.net basically. And now it's spread all over the internet, and there's Reddit, there's Tumblr, there's a bunch of people on Twitter who hang out. There's
Facebook groups and things
yeah,
like that.
Facebook groups. There's everything,
Yep.
and that's really beautiful in a way. It's kind of sad. It's like, oh man, like
It's not
we went
consolidated.
the way of the dinosaur,
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's really good to see that it still survives.
Yeah, and
So.
Clyde still does his part in keeping Earthbound Central, which is
Yes.
just
Yes.
earthboundcentral.com is the place to find out anything you want to know also about Earthbound. Just any recent thing will get linked there. I think when I asked Reggie about it at a 2014.
specifically?
No, just a Mother 3 during an E3 interview. It shows up right there. Yeah, it's like they asked and Reggie dodged. It was like you knew it, but it was still it made it there. And I
Another
was like,
swing
yes.
and another miss.
Yeah, we're swinging. All right, so hang on. So let's go back to this conversation with Itoi. When it was over, what went through your mind? Like, how did you feel?
I don't know. It was weird. And I say this, and there's certainly no disrespect to my family, my father especially, but it was like meeting your dad if you had never met your dad, Like, and I mean, I've got a great father, and it's nothing about him. It's just like someone who had such an outsized effect on my life, and who was always distant and gone and never there, almost like
the dad in Earthbound.
That's quite meta. Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Like in Earthbound, you play the game, and to save your game, you call your dad.
Yeah.
And
you never see him.
Never see him. He's
Never
just
see
a
him.
telephone. That's that's a joke in the Earthbound fan base. Is dad is a telephone.
Yeah.
But that was what it was like meeting Itoi. Like I finally got to meet this guy who I had just known of and orbited around for most of my life, and he was so warm and so welcoming. And exactly what I expected. It was so gratifying to be like, man, I expected this guy to be weird and charming and kind, and he was all those things. And it was just like, I can close the book on that now. Like I'm so fulfilled and happy with how this went. It was great. I can't say enough good about it. So.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
very, very cool.